For the last 15 years, I have made, I'm going to hazard a guess here, 99.9% of my income on one focal length. And in the last 5 years, every paid job I've done has used one single lens. Now you might be thinking, that's great, Scott, you're a still life photographer. I shoot more than still life. Not only that, still life doesn't really do it justice. It could be a product this big, it could be a massive scene. You don't know. And you'd assume you'd need many, many lenses to make it work. And the thing is, I've owned many, many lenses, but the only lens that makes me money is this one. This right here, this is a 90mm Sekal Z f3.5W. This is a £200 lens. Yes, it's a good lens. It's a very good lens. I shoot global campaigns. I've shot for Papa John's, Pepsi, Delhi, France, Cathedral City. Perfect. Super. Thank you. Well, this is impeccable timing. This very much has something to do with this video. Throw that on the ground. But yes, back to my point. My 90mm £200 lens, despite the fact, I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of kit in here. But this is the moneymaker. I've used it on 3 different camera bodies. It is well used and abused, and it takes a nice photograph. Of course, if you're a wedding photographer, maybe you can't do this, but I have. And I've just upgraded it, which may sound ludicrous because there's not a great deal bigger than what I'm currently shooting that I could shoot. And I'm not upgrading to get better work. That's not what it is. There's one very slight issue with this lens, very slight, very minor, and we've tackled it in a previous video. I've now bought the lens that fixes this, and it is the exact same focal length. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm not changing focal length. And if you've come into photography in the way I have, you assume you need different lenses for different things, different focal lengths for different things. That is not true. That is entirely a marketing gimmick. Now, someone's going to go, well, I shoot racing horses and I need... Sure, there are exceptions. If you're an events photographer, you probably do unless you work at the very high end. And this is part of the point. If you're a sports photographer, you probably do unless you work at the very high end. The higher up you go in this industry, regardless of niche, the more specialized and the more specific your work becomes. My first 10 years, I shot predominantly with an 85mm lens. Almost every job I got paid to do was an 85mm lens. There would be maybe one job every couple of years where the 35 came out. I used the 35 loads for personal work, coincidentally, but paid work, that was it. Still life comes along, the 90mm comes out. Once I started shooting still life, product, food, drink, all that stuff, this is what came along. I own a 65 as well, a wide lens. I use it in loads of test shoots. But when it comes to paying jobs, it calls for the 90mm. Now, I have a theory in that focal length really does not matter that much. If I only had the 65, I'd use a 65 and take a smidge step closer and use a larger background. But 90mm seems to be a great fix, and it seems to be the same for portraits, 85 to 100, that sort of thing. It seems to work really well. It seems to be the lens that lets you do most things. You can always move backwards, you can always move forwards. Kind of. Making your lens zoom out or choosing a wider lens doesn't really fix the issue of a tight space. Sure, it means you can get the photograph, but perhaps not the photograph you want. When you're working commercially, what you need to do is get the shot the client wants. And if that means moving a wall, you move a wall. If it means changing location, you change location. If it means, like we're about to do, building an entire living room inside my studio, it means building a living room. And this is why commercial photographers need so little kit, apart from lighting, which really gets elaborate. Now, in my box is my new shiny fancy lens, which I've bought from Teamwork Digital. So Teamwork lent me this lens. I've still got their one over there. I'm going to put their one into here and put my one onto there, return there. It's very kind people. They let me borrow it to see if I liked it, because it's a fair bit of cash to splash when you've not seen one before. And also these lenses, they're pretty rare. I don't know another person who has one. Obviously people do have them, but I don't know them. This lens in here that I've just spent, I don't know how much on. I've spent some money on it. It wasn't cheap. It wasn't expensive either because there's no autofocus, there's no automatic aperture, it's just a lens. But this lens in here cost me a sum of money. There will be no increase in my income because of it. This is not making me a penny more than my £200 lens was. It's not really saving me that much time. Packaging. Oh, an invoice. Oh, it was less than I thought it was. It was 1,500 quid all in with VAT. There we go, brilliant. Nice little postcard. And the lens. Now, I have a deal with Cambo, but I bought this full price without even going through them because I needed it. I needed it soon. But this is my lens. It's a Cambo lens. So yes, I have a deal with them, but no, I didn't even message Cambo. I messaged a lens shop in the UK called Teamwork, who are brilliant, and I needed the lens urgently. I didn't need it urgently. I wanted it urgently. So I bought it. And you're probably going, well, you're an absolute idiot, Scott. You've listened to none of your own advice and you just bought something. Well, I had a bit of a flush few months and I thought I fancied a new lens. There was an issue with my old one. It had a small amount of haze, which was 100% correctable in post. Look at this. You know it's a good lens when it comes in a carrier bag. This lens here doesn't have that haze. And we can fix it in post. It didn't matter. It wasn't the end of the world. But this lens is better. It's a better lens. It ain't going to make me any more money. Now, I could have bought any lens, any focal length. I could have bought every focal length of this lens. That wasn't an issue in that sense. But in order to stand out, in order to be noticed, in order to be seen in this noise of photography, you need a style. You need a signature. One of the easiest ways, if you're not a super creative person, one of the easiest ways to come up with that style is to set limitations. Most of my work is lit with one hard light. Most of my work is shot on a 90mm lens. It already breeds an aesthetic. Once you start going, well, I use 3 different lenses, that aesthetic is diluted. Once you start using hard light, soft light, and everything in between, that's diluted as well. In order to have a good, solid style of work that is easily recognizable as yours, that's what you need. Now, of course, anyone can copy my style of work. You can copy my style of work. But the thing which makes it recognizable as yours, and as mine in this instance, is that I do it over and over and over again for 15 years, and clients see my work over and over again. You might be able to copy one of my shots, I can copy one of your shots, but you've got to do it over and over again. That's where the business is, that's where the money's at. So in buying this lens and by sticking to my 90mm, yes, I've bought a new bit of kit. No, there is absolutely zero justification for purchasing this. Like, I can kid myself saying it saves me 3 seconds to remove the haze in post. And it's not that much haze. Like, look at my website, it's fine. It looks great. It's slightly better. I wanted a new lens. I bought myself a toy. I had the money to do it. It wasn't like it was my last 1,500 quid in the account. It was a sum above that. You know, don't go and buy a lens just because you think you need it. The proof of the pudding is I've had a career which has been extremely lucrative on a £200 lens. And almost all of my money was made on a £200 lens. You don't need a £1,500 or better lens. It is nice though. It's nice to have nice things. I get that. I did buy a nice thing stupidly. This is £1,500 I'm never seeing again. Let me make that very clear to everybody. The money I spent on this lens is gone. I'm not recouping it. No job is paying for that because I could already do it on this £200 lens. So stupidity, yes, but the point of the video is singular focal length. Less kit is more. One light, or maybe you're a 2 light person. I mean, it's very hard to be distinctive as a 5 light person because there's too many variables. The more you introduce, the more kit you add, the more chaos you bring in, the worse it gets. Now, my personal work is pretty much all one light, pretty much all of it. Like, it's rare that a second light comes out. But when clients come in the room, they start to have requirements. They'd like a little bit more light on the cheese. They'd like a little bit more light on the side of that chap's jacket. And then more lights come out. And when we do client work, I'd say the average amount of lights is 5. That's probably the most average amount of lights. It still looks like one light, but there's always little quirks they want. You don't need much kit. You really don't. And I know, like I've said, saying it in this room full of all this stuff sounds stupid. Most of this stuff is misinformed purchases and hoarding. You know, if I was going to do a creative piece of work for myself today, now it'd be this lens goes on my camera, 90mm. I get one of my lights out and my big reflector. That'd be it. If it's a client job, it changes. It changes all the time. But to create the work which actually makes me the money, always the 90mm lens and 4 or 5 lights. Don't do what I did and be put off by the amount of kit you see photographers having. All of us use a small amount of it, and a lot of it we hold on to because it's devalued so much it isn't worth selling. It's just not worth the hassle. You've lost so much money on it. It's like buying a new car. You've just gone and lost so much money on it, you just got to kind of keep it forever now, because otherwise you've just spent 20 grand driving a car for 2 years. That's this. This is my stupid purchase. This is my new car. Do as I say, not as I do.